All right, joining me once again here on the Matthew Filipowicz Show is my good friend Amanda Marcotte. Amanda is an author, a writer, a blogger. She is the host of Reality Cast at RH Reality Check. Her work has been seen in Slate, Salon, Alternate. She is also the writer, of course, of the Pandagon column, which you can find at Raw Story, rawstory.com. You can also find her on Twitter at Amanda Marcotte. Amanda, thank you so much for being on the show again.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, so Amanda, this last week we had the guilty verdict in the Steubenville rape case, and then we had some just absolutely insane and horrific responses to it from the media and from obviously people on the internet and in society. So let's just start out. What was your take on the verdict that came down last week?
I thought it was appropriate. I think it was exactly what it needed to be. I mean, they were tried as juveniles. They got a year and 2 years minimum. They'll be released when they're 21. At that point in time, the courts will decide if they're going to be put on the sex offender list. Everything worked, I think, basically as it's supposed to. I mean, it's not really a big surprise in a sense because it was just a judge kind of looking over it since it was juvenile court and the evidence was overwhelming. I think if there was a jury, then it might have been easier for the defense to try to make this put the victim on trial instead of the defendants. But a judge clearly understands the difference between the victim and the perpetrator in a court of law a little bit better than a lot of juries do.
A lot of juries and also most of the media, it would appear.
Well, that's the problem with juries is they're kind of made up of the citizens of
which sadly the media is too. Really, that's really it's kind of sad, isn't it?
Exactly. The media people are not trained to be judges. Maybe they should be.
Yeah. No, we really probably should have a little more idea of actually just what the law is in this country and what it actually means to break the law and what it means to be what it means to be a perpetrator and what it means to be a victim.
Yeah, it would be nice if people understood, for instance, the difference between law and culture. For instance, that would be a helpful, good place to start. I see a lot of confusion when you're talking about sexual violence and abuse between the difference between law and culture. I mean, I've seen the Steubenville piece. There were a million pieces that kind of talked about not just Steubenville, but just sort of the general discussion lately about sexual abuse and rape. There seems to be a lot of confusion about what is and isn't legally rape, and if something's not legally rape, does that mean that it's just like okay all the time? It's just really sad. People need to kind of really understand these sort of different categories here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you're actually right at Raw Story about how, I mean, I don't think anyone who opens their eyes can really understand, can deny that our society, that rape culture is a gigantic problem in our society. Obviously, you have a lot of lunkhead morons on the internet and in the world, freaking out and denying it. But, there's no way I think you can look at the coverage of Steubenville and not say that rape culture is a really horrible problem here.
Yeah, I think that's actually one of the good things to come out of all this is it seems finally we're having a larger cultural discussion about rape culture, like as a culture, probably for the first time and in a deep way in a long time. It's usually the conversation is dominated by people who seem to think of rape as a bad thing that happens either because evil men jump out of bushes or when it comes to acquaintance rape, some guys just get too horny and they lose control. And there's very little discussion about the realities of rape and how it's rooted in a culture of sexism and misogyny and sort of a tendency to look the other way when rape happens. And for the first time in my lifetime, I really feel that the cultural context that this happened has been the dominant focus of the discussion.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm not that all crime would stop. But I mean, actually having a discussion on the culture that allows that allows, kids to think that what happened in Steubenville was not a big deal and it wasn't rape. That somehow, society has allowed that to happen. Society has allowed that to exist, and that mindset to exist for a long, long time. And at least we're actually finally getting a bit of to get to talk about it. But I actually want to point out something you just posted on Raw Story. You actually wrote, and I'm going to let you lay this down. You wrote about how the coverage of the abuse of a cat, which granted is a horrible thing, the media coverage and comment coverage on that, it also kind of says something about our society. Tell us all about it.
Well, yeah, okay, so this story, let's be clear, this story had a lot of effect on me because my cat was rescued after being tortured by boys in a similar situation. So this is personal for me, but there was a story about this little boy, 10 years old, Wendell Overton, who came across this group of boys, ages 5 to 13, torturing a cat. They were throwing it in the air. They were running over it with their bicycle. They were probably going to kill it if he hadn't intervened. But he intervened. He took the cat home. He got it some help. The cat is expected to make a full recovery. And the story was a heartwarming tale of this boy standing up and demonstrating a kind of model of manhood that is preferable to the destroy and kill model.
Right.
A person who is a contributor to his society instead of a destroyer of things.
Right. Yes.
And I thought that it was kind of crazy because, the story was basically presented straightforwardly. Boys who torture cats are bad. The culture that encourages boys to torture cats needs to be fixed. Cat torture can be prevented by doing this, and the cat was not held up as somehow complicit in his torture.
Well, are you sure though? I mean, let's examine that. Maybe the cat was asking for it. I don't know. Maybe was the cat wearing a shiny collar or something that would have just driven these guys to torture it? Maybe the cat was drunk at the time. Or how late was it? Was the cat out late? Maybe because if it was too late, maybe the cat shouldn't have been out in the first place, and maybe it really was the cat's problem.
I will say I saw one comment that discussed the cat's choices, and this comment was very telling. The person said, the cat seems like a sweet cat. He probably trusted these boys and came up and was rubbing on them and being sweet, and they exploited this cat's trusting nature. How terrible is that those boys did that? And you're right. It is terrible to exploit someone who trusts you.
And and if a cat purrs at you, I think that pretty much that's consent in cat world, I believe, right? For anything that comes down. But your greater point is your greater point of this is absolutely correct. And the fact of the matter is and rightfully, yes, we should condemn, people torturing animals. It's horrible, and it's also a very scary outlier of what those type of people will probably grow up to be. They'll probably grow up to be people who, have no respect for, anything. If they're willing to torture animals, there's kind of they're psychopaths essentially. But then again, the universal correct response is yes, these kids are sick, and what the boy who helped the cat did was correct. But we do not have that reaction when you have young dudes and just dudes in general, raping and assaulting women, which happens all the time in our society.
Yeah, in fact, as I said in the article, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a huge amount of overlap between boys who torture animals as kids and men who. I imagine a lot of them grow up to be men who commit sexual assault because at the end of the day, to be all serious, torturing cats and raping women are basically rooted, are behaviors that are sort of rooted in the same motivations to sort of exert dominance and control and feel powerful by dominating and hurting somebody that you perceive as less than you or existing for your use.